Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. If you're watching this video, smash that like button. If you are listening to this audio, make sure you subscribe to the channel on Spotify. I think it's follow, and then Apple Podcasts. They switched it. I think it's a follow, but I'm not for sure. Double check. Either way, subscribe, follow. It's the same thing. If you'd like to write us a review, that would be awesome as well. Please mention Dave's hair. Please mention the hoodie that I'm wearing, so we know that you actually wrote the review and we know that you are watching the show.
10 out of a 10 right there. That was good.
You thought the intro was pretty good?
That was pretty good. That was pretty solid. I like the smash the like button.
I mean, I feel like I have to go down the whole basic YouTube.
Yeah, everybody says that. You got to do the same thing.
It's like basic white chick, right? Like basic white chick.
But if you don't say it,
Starbucks.
It's like, do people really forget?
I always wonder that. Yeah. Like, does it really matter?
Hey, this is my first podcast ever. What should I do if I like it?
Do you think the other person
I don't know.
Doesn't know?
I'm sorry if you don't. I'm not trying to be snotty about it.
You know what? Everyone is putting the full screen and they don't see the like button. So if you are in full screen mode, exit out of full screen and smash that like button with your elbow.
Or just yell out, "I like this," and maybe something will happen.
Maybe we'll hear it.
Maybe it'll happen.
When a person says when a person says that in a forest, does it make a sound?
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
For us, it does. We recognize everything. We don't discriminate any sound.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Give us the intro to this topic. I'm really interested to see how you actually intro this in, because the two words that are on this piece of paper.
The process.
Yeah,
which is boring, which I'm not going to talk about. I'm actually going to probably go more like.
Do you think there's somebody out there that says, "Oh yes, we're talking about the process"?
No, nobody. Nobody does. No kid gets excited when I say it. No coach gets excited. I'm sure most of the time they think I'm just blowing them off.
You know what we should do?
What's that?
So I'm big on clickbait. So maybe we should just put Bitcoin price 700,000 and we'll have a whole bunch of clicks. That's
number 45 podcast that Spiker has slid in cryptocurrency.
I'm trying to get into the algorithm, Dave. I don't care if it's right or wrong. I'm trying to get in the algorithm.
Just do a solo one day. Just get it out of your system so we don't have to talk about it anymore.
I could tell you all about it, man. All about it.
But no, so I guess I'm going to kind of channel this is coming from more like the grumpy side of me, because I think we hear this all the time on our end from players who are chasing, the next level, or they're chasing that top end guy at their age group and they're not that dude yet, or they're fear of missing out on another team or whatnot, and they want to go from A to Z in 2 days, which is just not possible. And that always kind of, while I understand it, I always do have kind of a standard response to those types of players or parents, and a lot of times parents, and then actually a lot of times it's coaches too. And it's the term "trust the process," right? And we've said it for years. I mean, look at how many shirts it's on the back of. It just says "trust the process."
It's become such a cliche that I try to move away from that phrase.
So here's why it got sparked today. Because our director of ops, Shannon Hoffman, I guess she overheard us talking in the office, and she actually came over and had a really good question, I thought, where she asked, what does it mean? What does trust the process mean?
It was a valid question.
It was valid.
It was a very valid question.
It was valid. I actually think I started to answer, and then she walked away, and I was like, well, I guess you don't want to know the answer. You got to listen to the podcast now.
Dave, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, and then just hung up.
But it's we're going to go into a couple things here, but I think when I as a coach try to explain this to players, I think there's so many different answers I could give for it. But in my mind, when we talk about trusting the process, or even as a player, just sticking to the process, just go day in, day out, follow your specific process. I think where I always go to is, one, it's ever changing, it's growing, it can be a perspective type of a situation for a player or a coach. It can help you get to next small goals. And there's just a lot of different answers to it, but it's really unique to that person who's dealing with it right now. Normally, when I hear a player come back to me, like for an example, we have one senior this year who's now committed to a school, really, really good school. And over the last summer, he finally hit 90 off the mound. And I sent him a text saying, congrats. And he goes, you know what? I never understood what you meant by follow the process until right now, because he finally got to his goal. And he looks back at the last 4, 5, 6 years as he put in, where he's grinded day in, day out. And maybe you don't understand those small goals or small wins at that moment, because you certainly don't. I think most players really, and most coaches don't get that. But
I would say like the goal aspect is one of those things that's very misunderstood, and it's evolved with me over the years, where like writing down your goals and writing down everything that you want to accomplish is super important. Like you should do that, but it's not like something that you constantly are like writing down and always analyzing and auditing your goals. Like you're going to audit at some point, but it's knowing like, okay, here's my overarching goal. This is what I want to accomplish. Now I'm going to live my life, and I have to, like, I love what Fitz said. It's a lifestyle. Like, I think it's more of a lifestyle than a process, but at the same time, like, you have a workflow that you have to accomplish. So like Kessler was in here today, AD for Parkway West, and he was trying to figure out how to get better at podcasting where it eliminates a lot of time. And so we showed him our setup, and I have a process. Like I literally thought before I bought the equipment, I want something that's mobile. I want something that's able to put down and bring back up real quickly. We don't have a studio. This is not our full-time jobs. And so our conference room is our studio. So I have to be able to be mobile enough to where I can store it in my office and then be able to pop it up whenever I want. I can put it in my office, right? So like that's an example of a process, a workflow that I grew over the years from doing content. Like if you look at my first stuff, my very first stuff, Tiger TV, I wasted so much time. I wasted a lot of money. I would get in a damn car and drive all the way to different colleges.
I was with you on some of them.
And I'm just thinking like, God, that was miserable. We had Zoom. It wasn't Zoom. It was Skype.
Skype, yeah.
It was Skype. Like we could have easily recorded it, but like that was just like it's part of the growing pains. Like you don't know what you don't know, right?
But you also probably learned a lot looking back at it through each one of those interviews.
Well, I knew what cameras I wanted. I knew what mics I wanted. I knew the different like because when we go to these colleges, there were different rooms and different spaces. So I had to understand how sound traveled in those rooms when we recorded it. And if you look at the recording, my first mic that I ever used was it's on this camera right now. It's one of those Rode Go mics that is just a prop on the camera. I didn't realize like you need the mic closer to the person's mouth to actually work and hear what they have to say. I remember the first video we had with
Wasn't it Coach Gutton?
No, it was Coach Gutton.
He was your first, right?
It was my first one, and then my second one was with Iowa, I think. And I remember watching the first one with Gutton. I was like, oh, that's not bad. Like, I could totally do this. Like, that's like Hollywood quality. Not realizing it was on a point-and-shoot camera. I propped it up on a book. And, like, I'm just thinking, like, Coach Gutton's looking at us like, are you seriously recording on, like, that little camera over there? Like, would have got it even better would have been just the iPhone.
Yeah.
They would probably like, are you serious right now? And then the Iowa coach, Heller, I didn't realize like there's space in between this room and the camera, and I didn't zoom in. And I remember the first comment was, "This is a great interview, but I can't hear a damn thing that the person's saying." Also, I have to use my binoculars to actually see the person. So like that, it was just a harsh reality, and that's part of me growing into that process. Yep. And the worst thing that you want to do is not do anything. If I'm an athlete and I have a goal and I want to go to Division I, who cares if you're not doing it right? As long as you're doing it.
And that's really important. It's like sometimes like those phrases of, showing up is 90% of the battle. And honestly, I love that phrase and I hate that phrase with certain things, but there is a lot of validity to that, of literally going through that, trying something new, trying it day in, day out. And if you're working on a skill like baseball, like we talk about, I mean, trying something new, that's a part of the process. Failing, learning, growing, failing, learning, growing. It's going to be ever constant. And that's why I always kind of use that term as a perspective. I like talking to players about that. It's your process is always going to change. It's going to grow, but you got to stick to it. Mm-hmm. You can't just give up on it, and you certainly can't skip it. If you try to skip or you try to be something that you're not, or you're worried about your status in your team or your area at this moment, you've already lost.
Well, trying to look bigger than you actually are, it looks nice in the beginning, and then it does draw people in, and people start rallying behind you. But if you only have so much time to really prove that you are bigger than what you say you are, and you could be that. I mean, there's a lot of people that have worked that way, where they've act bigger than they are, and then they end up being that person. But majority of the cases, that's not it.
No, and I'm going to give you an example here. So think about this, because everybody's been a part of a team and had these two people on it. Because I think that these two people are almost in every team setting that I've ever been a part of. You have one guy or girl that is always conscious about everybody else. They're always looking at, where they're in the lineup compared to someone else, or how much attention the coach is giving that person versus them, or
they're very aware of their surroundings.
Yeah, or other teams out there versus theirs, and they're constantly worried about that. They're worried about, like you said, FOMO, or their status, or just being loved as much as other people. And I'll tell you this. I think that's kind of that person. They're stuck. They're not moving forward, okay? Then you have player number 2 that is kind of that person that doesn't really, no one's attracted to them. Like, nobody just kind of funnels towards them because they're just quiet. They're just getting after it day in, day out. They're just worried about what they're doing and nobody else. And they don't draw attention. Like, nobody just sits there and goes, man, look at Billy over there working really, really hard every day. You just almost don't notice them. And sometimes even as coaches, it's hard unless you see him, 4 or 5 times in a row to be like, he's just doing his thing again. He's here again early. He's here late. He's just doing his thing. If you look at those 2 examples, and I'll even say most of the time the player 2 is probably behind in skill level at that point, at least in most cases that I've ever seen. That player jumps that player 1 real quick and then never looks back. And I've had so many countless examples. I would say more of our guys who have gone on to the next level and done great things professionally, almost all of them had that common trait, that they were not worried about. Even some of the best guys, like I wrote down some of our examples of in-house. Eric Miller, arguably the biggest name to come out of the Rolling Tigers program. He's in the Arizona Fall League, on the doorstep of Major League Baseball. Eric was an introvert. Eric didn't talk about anyone else ever. Never to me. He hated when I said good things about him. Like, literally. He did not want to be talked about, and he did not ever say, well, I'm better than that guy, or this, why is he getting attention over me? Never. It was just about him. He was worried about what his process was. Kenny Piper just got drafted by the Rays out of Columbia College. He was an undersized dude his entire life. Probably got overlooked 1,000,000 times by people. Probably was told, you're never going to make it. You're not that guy. You're not that catcher. Look at that dude. He's 6 foot 190. He's prototype catcher A. You're not that dude. What are you doing? What can he do? Just kept working. Day in, day out. Didn't worry about it. Was worried about him, his process. We got a guy in house, a senior right now. Same deal. He's out here working every single day. And I've had 1,000,000 conversations with him, and he never mentions anyone else's name or any other club or any other school. He's very happy with where he's committed to and where he's going, and he knows that that's his process to get to the next step. Those are examples. Same thing on the big league level. We just had Matt Adams in the door, right? He went D2 out of college. Worked his tail off, got drafted as a 22nd rounder. That's not a high draft. There's a lot of dudes ahead of him. Worked harder. Wasn't worried about his surroundings. Wasn't worried about all the bonus babies that were in front of him who had bigger contracts at the the club had to give more opportunity to. Didn't worry about it. Worked his tail off. Kept going. Still doing it. My famous one that I brought up, Mike Piazza in the Hall of Fame. Dude was drafted in the 62nd round. I just found this out by talking to Pratt because I was like, dude, when were there 62 rounds? I didn't even know that. But he's like, yeah, if a team just wanted to keep drafting guys, they could until they said done. They could have drafted 200 guys if they wanted. But latest round draft pick to ever make the Hall of Fame. He was drafted as a favor to the Dodgers manager at the time, Tommy Lasorda. So do you think he was picked to go up to the big leagues or be a Hall of Famer? Nope. Do you think he worried about status? Probably not. I mean, those are all examples of guys that endorsed the process, that loved the process, that really got engulfed in it, that were not worried about anything else that was going on. Nothing around their surrounding areas got in their bubble. It was just them. And that's important. And that's what I try to talk to players about when we mention that boring term of trust the process, stick to the process. That's the examples I always bring up of the day-to-day grinders like that.
The psychology of that is extremely hard, though, because people want comfort, people want to be loved, people want to gain praise, and they want to be recognized. And then with all that comes the increase of popularity, which also increases status. The hardest part, I remember the day that I made this promise to myself. And when I first went into high school, I was all about popularity, which is normal for any
everybody
14, 15
just want to be liked.
Kid. Yeah, you want to be liked. You want to be known by the seniors. You want to be known by the juniors. My sophomore year was really good. My junior year was horrible. And I remember thinking to myself, I am surrounding myself with the wrong people. I'm too worried about what other people think. I'm more worried about popularity. Who knows me? Do the people at my rival school know who I am? Do the people in St. Louis County, because my school is in a small town, do they know who I am? And then I just finally said, you know what? I'm going to cut everything out, and I'm going to do this from now on, which is I'm going to go work out for 2 hours each day. That was my time limit, 2 hours. No plan, no process, no nothing. I just was going to say, I'm going to go into this flame. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm going to literally be an introvert for the rest of my high school career. Now, it didn't mean that I wasn't like nice during school and like hanging out and being social. That's just being human. But I didn't go to parties. I was home before 11 o'clock each night. And I got my rest. And I had the thought process, I got to get my stuff done before I can have any fun. What that did was it actually increased my status and popularity my senior year. So our crosstown rival knew exactly who I was in football. They knew exactly who I was in baseball. People in St. Louis County, my friends, they started realizing like, oh man, you're having a really good year. You're doing really well in football and you're doing really well in baseball. And then Legion, because at the time Legion was very popular, Legion was what took off. So when you go down and stick to the process and not care what everyone else is thinking or what status you are, because it's very hard because you want to be known and you want to be like, oh, he's part of that brand. Doesn't matter, man. Like it's all fake. It's all just conjured up in your mind and someone else's mind. Well, what happens if all those people don't think that that's cool anymore? You're out.
Right.
You're out.
I wrote something down when you said that. You said the psychology of that is hard, and you're absolutely 100% correct. But it's necessary.
Oh, it's super necessary. Super necessary.
It is necessary for so many reasons, and I'm a firm believer that in order to get to the end of the tunnel, per se, okay, get to your goals, you're going to have to fight that psychology battle so many times. It's not just a 1, 2, 3 time thing, and now you're over it. Now you're that complete guy who doesn't need and worry about what other people think. That's going to be the little guy on your shoulder, always in your ear, saying, "What do you think Bobby thinks about what you're doing?" or whatever it is. It's always going to be there, and you have to push through that. All the guys I mentioned ahead, think of how battle tested they are now because of how many times they had to fight that. They had to fight that. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting your own inner thoughts because, I mean, everybody gets to that anxious moment, or everybody is a little bit insecure at times, and they're always worried about, am I doing the right thing? Am I surrounding myself with the right people? Am I going down the right path? And you might make mistakes. Probably chances are you are. But you have to go through those mistakes. You have to fail, like we said a million times on this podcast, but that's part of the process too. Nobody said the process is pretty. Nobody said that it's easy. No one said that it's just going to be given to you. It's earned. It's day to day. It's hard. It's failure. Sometimes really bad failure. Sometimes those ultimate tests that come your way that actually kind of ask yourself, is this something I want to stick out and keep going with? I bet all those guys went through that. They came out on the other side, and when they did, they get questioned with those, like, what I would consider like immature thoughts, they probably laugh at it. Like, oh, you're still in that phase. You'll get there.
The common thread amongst all those guys that we talked about was that they were walking to the beat of their own drum. Didn't mean that they didn't care about anybody else, but they knew they had a narrow focus plus a wide focus at the same time. So their narrow focus was, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. Now, I'm going to be wrong, but I'm going to adjust and make sure that I move forward, because you're only good as your last at bat. History will give you the probability of who you are, but at the end of the day, it's not going to define who you are. It just gives you probabilities. And I don't know if they can state that, but that's literally how it feels, is that I'm moving forward and I'm going to make mistakes. And if you want to come along with this journey, let's do it. If you don't want to come on this journey and you want to go do something else, that's perfectly fine by me. I'm supporting you, but I'm going to support you over here.
And I bet you none of those dudes ever got caught up in where they were at currently. Like, do you think Matt Adams was like, man, I'm just some 22nd rounder who's in A-ball right now. I'm nobody. You know, I'm no one considered. I mean, I'm chasing Albert Pujols, for gosh sakes. And, you know, I can't beat that guy. He's a future Hall of Famer. He never thought that.
I think in his head, he, like, from a humbling aspect, you have that in the back of your head, but your ego overweighs that, and you consciously think into yourself, and you keep on telling yourself, I'm better than that guy. I can beat that guy. Like, I just want to go toe-to-toe with that guy.
Well, again, my last example of why it's so necessary to go through those battles so many times is because I guarantee that thought came in his head.
Yeah.
I guarantee it was there, because I don't think you can ever eliminate.
It's living with it.
How do you deal with it?
How good are you at managing that?
Yeah, 100%.
That's
and how do you react to it?
Again, I don't want to talk about crypto.
Oh boy.
But trading, I was listening to one of the traders in an interview, and he said the difference between a good trader and a bad trader is the one that can manage their emotions when it swings the opposite direction of what their narrative was, and still sticking to that narrative and still researching and finding out without making a rash decision of, gotta sell, gotta push the sell button, where they let it ride, let it play out, see how it happens, and then gather more information, try to validate their narrative again. If the validation's correct, then they stick in the position. If the validation is wrong, it's not validated at all, they sell, and then they take the loss, and then they just move on to their next trade. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with athletes. When everything around you is telling you, you will never make it to Division I baseball. You will never make it to professional baseball. You'll never make it to Major League Baseball. Being able to look at that, assess your skill set and say, screw you. I can do this. And I'm going to keep going until someone tells me that is in a high position that I cannot play this game anymore. Mm-hmm. Luckily, there are 30 clubs in Major League Baseball, so you got to get 30 opinions for them to tell you that you do not deserve to play Major League Baseball. And just kind of looking back at my career, it was very evident when it was all over, which was I was burnt out. I was tired. I did not want to do this anymore. It got to that point. It wasn't that someone told me that, hey, you can't play this game anymore. It got to a point where I couldn't fight it anymore. I couldn't sit there and prove another person wrong. I was just burnt out on the game, and I didn't want to put those cleats on and step out on that turf field ever again. Now that's where with people on the other end, when they have their playing career, you have to leave on your own terms. You can't leave on everyone else telling you should quit. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of people go wrong.
And again, that was your process.
Yeah.
It's a boring term, but it was. That's your process. You played it out. And now you're on to a different process. But think of how many things you went through to get to that point. How many hard times, good times you had. I mean, it really is something that I think as a player, I definitely know as a coach sometimes, we don't actually appreciate it or really understand it fully until it's over or until way, way down the road and you look back. That's why it's so important while you're in the moment to understand the things that we're talking about today, to understand the perspectives, the mindsets that you're going to need to have if you truly want to keep growing and being successful. You have to have some of these core principles that we're talking about because otherwise you're going to get caught up in that trap. That trap's really smart. That trap will always be there. And guess what? Once you get past one, it's going to be right around the corner again. That trap of being worried about so many of the wrong things or the status or why am I not there yet?
Well, here's a question for you. I shared when I knew I was going to be done because I always thought about that. Like when I was playing was like, okay, at what point do I quit? I've heard some people say this. I've heard some people do that. Do I just ride it out and go all the way to the end? How did you know? Like, did you have like a set thing in your head? Like, okay, this is when I'm going to hang up my cleats.
Well, I'll give you a couple answers to it because there's a moment where, I always had, just like most players, a dream of playing college baseball and getting to that level and, earning that opportunity and experience. And I did out of high school, and I went to a junior college. And at the end of my senior summer, I had hurt my arm pretty bad. Didn't know what it was. Didn't go get it checked out. My first or second batter of my first inter-squad scrimmage in junior college baseball, I did a pickoff, and I literally tore my UCL almost like it was 95% of the way. Like it was a snap. I didn't even get to – I had one practice in because JUCO, you pretty much do a couple practices and you're inter-squad and playing. And then they figure out who you are. I had no experience yet. I thought it was over. Like that's a year down the road. Do I really want to rehab for a whole year? Do I really want to do this? I don't even know what college baseball is. I didn't even get to taste it yet. I almost stopped right there. I could have just gone to Mizzou and been a kid or something like that just because I didn't want to go through another year of not playing. And then there's no guarantee if I come back good. That wasn't – I mean, they had done Tommy John on a lot of guys, and some guys come back stronger, but that's pros who have all day, every day to rehab. Mm-hmm. I was a student. I didn't have all the resources they do. So who knew if I was going to come back throwing 10 miles per hour slower and this coach was going to say, you're not the dude we recruited. See you later. Mm-hmm. Who knew? So that was one where I didn't even know if I was going to do it. I decided to and go through with everything and got back, and I'm really thankful I did because I got 4 more years to play.
Do you think you would have regretted if you?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I would 100% regretted it.
You probably would have been there sitting like, oh, I wish I would have done that.
Because I'm always the guy that I think I was super naive as a young age. I was a pretty good athlete, and I always thought that I could beat anyone I pitched against. Mm-hmm. I was just one of those people that or played against in any sport. I really didn't care. I just thought that I could beat you because I was naive. I didn't pay attention to any of the other stuff out there. So I would always look back and been like, I would have watched college baseball on TV and be like, I could go strike that guy out. Yep. I'd be telling all my friends sitting around the TV, and they're like, dude, you don't even play. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd be fearful of that. But to answer the real question you asked, I knew that at that moment when I was a senior and graduating and, I was eyeing in on my last weekend playing because there had to be a ton of stuff to go right for us to make it on into the conference playoffs. So I was pretty sure we were done, and I was pretty sure that a 7 ERA wasn't going to cut the old deal for the MLB draft. So I had like this. It was like a chapter was closing, and something new was going to open. Now the weird thing was, I didn't know what that new thing was.
Mm-hmm.
I was not one of those guys who had a job lined up, and
So this was in college.
yeah, this was college. Yeah. I didn't know that, so I didn't know if I just was burnt out. I mean, I would have loved another opportunity, but I knew it wasn't coming. Indie ball wasn't happening for me, as I was just an average cat. But once it closed, the beauty of life is another process door opens. And that's when I went to grad school and started doing this. Now, when I started with Jaws, I had no idea that I'd be doing this 12 plus years later. But I think back to all the different things that we've went through with the Tigers and everything. Like, that's a great example, honestly. From where we started to where we are now, how many times I could have probably just jumped off and gone and done something else as of you and everybody else. Just because you get frustrated and you're not there yet and you're always looking ahead, well, why aren't we this club, or why aren't we that guy, or why don't we get these players, or why are they turning us down? And things like that. I mean, how many times could we have been like, we're just not going to be that guy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember Sandy would always say, like, I really hope that you and Dave don't leave. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it just wasn't a thought.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can leave?
And obviously certain times you think about, well, should I do something different, or should I? Of course, it's just natural, but it's like now you look back because you stuck to the process. I know it's stupid, but
that's true.
You stuck to it, and you learned through your wins and losses, and you kept grinding day in, day out, and did your thing and built upon that foundation that we had started. And then, now we're doing these types of things, and now our club's doing this. And so, I probably went on a different tangent there, but.
Well, I think about my buddy too. He's in NHL. He's now a VP with the Panthers, and he was big on making sure that he positioned himself correctly, because that was a job that he wanted to do consistently. He wants to be a GM somewhere. At an organization, and he was a guy that never really, I mean, obviously he wanted money, but he was willing to sacrifice the payout and make sure that the position was correct, so it catapulted him in the right direction for his career. Where I think a lot of people, it's very tempting, everyone gets tempted on this, is making the switch due to money. We talked about Ikigai a while back, and I gave you that story with Shandi, and kind of an update right now on Shandi is that she's at they're not a startup, but a real estate firm that acts like a startup, and she took an entry-level job, like very base minimum. And I remember we were talking at the dinner table, and she's like, should I take this? And I was like, is it something that you love and you can position yourself to do the thing that you want to do? She's like, yeah, but then this job over here is offering me X dollars and giving us this amount of benefits. And I was like, no. Is this the job that's going to catapult you into the thing that you want to do in the future? And literally she took the job, and a month later she got promoted right away. And now she's on the verge of getting her next promotion. So it's funny how everything works, where the path of like the enticing thing over here could distract you from, you might have to take a step down. One of the guys that I follow, an influencer, he, I forgot his name. It escapes my head, but he had a really good saying. I think it's Neville. People are willing, they climb up this mountain, but they're not willing to go down the mountain to take a different path to go back up so they reach the peak. They'll get stuck. So it's this. I feel like it's the same thing with us on the Tigers. Is like, and the players, like the players and us are pretty similar in a lot of cases. We're trying to accomplish a goal while they're trying to accomplish a goal. And there's a lot of tempting moments to where say, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna just stop baseball and I'm gonna go to college, join a fraternity, and get my business degree and then head out in the world. Like, that's a great, noble thing. But at the same time, like, if you had made a promise to yourself to say, I'm going to exhaust all my resources to make college baseball a reality, you're going to, I have a bunch of friends that will say, man, you did it. It's like, I didn't do it. I just wanted to do this thing. That's all I wanted to do. It wasn't about to put an impression on you. It wasn't about status. It wasn't about popularity. Is that I wanted to prove to myself that I could go into a Division I baseball, play the top colleges and universities. I remember playing Nebraska for the first time. I'm like, holy cow, I made it. I'm here. I'm actually playing against the University of Nebraska. That's all I wanted. It wasn't like it'd been nice to play Major League Baseball. Like, everyone wants to play Major League Baseball, but it wasn't like something that you had to breathe for. Like, I wanted to breathe that. Like, Major League Baseball was like, I could give her. It was like, whatever. Like, it'd been awesome. It'd been sweet to make $50 million and people know who you are. But at the same time, it's like, that's not what I really, really wanted. My huge goal was to go into Division I baseball, play against the top universities, and say, I freaking did that.
Everything you just said there, I got the title of this podcast. You ready?
Okay, shoot for it.
Beware.
You got it. They have to click on it, Dave.
Beware of the easy pivot.
Ooh, instead of the big pivot, it's the easy pivot.
Because we just had that.
Wow. Look at you. You're a copywriter right now.
Yeah. But that's it. Like that,
Drew's fired, by the way.
To summarize a lot of what we're talking about, there's going to be so many easy pivots through the process that'll be at your door. They're always going to be popping up. Not saying they're all wrong or bad, but they're always going to be there. That easy shift is always going to be there. When has easy ever gotten you to where you want to go?
Never. Absolutely never.
If life was that easy, everybody'd be that successful.
Yep.
It's a trap.
That's why the lottery is a trap.
It's a trap.
It's too easy. I can go to a gas
Admiral
station
Akbar,
and buy a ticket.
it is a trap.
Yep.
Okay? So just, again, what we're talking about, we're trying to unpack that cliche phrase, and I know we went into a lot of different areas, but beware of that easy pivot. Always have your focus on the future, not the now. Don't be worried about the now. Don't be worried about what everybody's saying, the outside influences. Be worried about where you're going. That's what I would leave with, and I would say that would be my closing pitch.
I really want to try to find this guy so that people could follow him on Instagram. Like, he just has really good thoughts. Hopefully I can find it. If not, I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, it is. It's Neville. It's Naval. Really good thought leader. Really good thought like ideas around business and just living life. He's been on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think he's been on Tim Ferriss as well. But he's a really strong follow. Just does audio. And he has a graphic designer that puts all of his graphics together. But if you guys want to follow him on Instagram, I have him on notifications set to all. So really good follow. Anyways, yeah, I hope this helped from a process standpoint. It was a really good point by Shannon, and getting down to the details of what we actually mean by the process. Like, don't think that it has to be a clear cut thing, one step after another, after another, after another. You grow into it. Mr. Wonderful off of Shark Tank, he always says, invest in it and then investigate instead of investigate, because you'll never invest.
I like that.
So it's the same thing with it when it comes to chasing down a dream. You've got to just get your hands dirty, and trust me, you're going to be wrong, but that's always a good thing because you can always learn from it. So, guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. My name's Spiker Helms. Across from me is David Birkby. We are directors at Rawlings Tigers, which is a national baseball and softball club. We also have another podcast called the Tiger Interview Series. Dave or myself or Jaws or even Tim Jones or even DJ, they interview people in the space. We use it to really shine some light on the program and give you more details on the program, but we also interview people that we find interesting in the space, and try to introduce you guys to those ideas. It's all about baseball, all about softball, strategy, tactics, really into the weeds. Closing Pitch is all about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. We touch on business. We touch on our baseball club. We touch on our life stories. And then also we bring in on guests like Matt Adams, who can tell their story as well. And also Rafael Lopez. So guys, thanks so much. Please subscribe to the podcast. Go to the YouTube channel, which is The Closing Pitch. If you'd like to see the Tiger interview series, please go over to the Rawlings Tigers YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well. And guys, please give us a review, even if it's like kitty, kitty, lick, lick, what's up, what's up,
That's weird.
and 5 stars. I'm totally cool with that as long as you give us the 5 stars. We will talk to you guys later.
See ya.